As a composer just starting out, do you struggle to write effectively for the string section? Hi, today I'm going to walk you through step by step how to write and orchestrate for a string section such as this. So today I'll concentrate more on the actual orchestration techniques used rather than the composing process. Check out my recent video, 5 beginner tips for melody writing, which details how I wrote the main melody of the piece I'm showing you today. Whether you're composing using samples or eventually plan to make a recording with players such as a string quartet, the techniques I'll show you will work well for any situation involving strings. Let's start by looking at the individual instruments which make up a typical string section. The strings are the largest family in the orchestra and are comprised of 4 different instruments: the violins, violas, cellos, and basses. It's an incredibly versatile family of instruments, being able to play long sustained notes quietly and expressively, right up to loud and short staccato aggressive notes, like the repeating ostinatos from the Batman trilogy soundtrack, or the strings from the shower scene in Psycho. The violins are the highest pitched notes of the string section, with their lowest note being G2, which is the G below middle C, right up to roughly around E7. In an orchestra, as well as chamber ensembles such as a string quartet, we'll have 2 sections of violins, the first and seconds. An orchestra will have more violins than any other of the stringed instruments, with a typical orchestra having around 30 violins split between the first and seconds. Next we have the violas. These are slightly larger than the violins, and are typically used to bridge the gap between the violins and the cellos. The violas can go down an extra 5 notes to the C below middle C, or C2, right up to the A5 area, and are also the only instrument in the orchestra which makes use of the alto clef. They have a slightly warmer and richer sound, and a typical orchestra would normally have around 12 violas. Next we have the cellos, which operate around the lower end of the strings register. A cello can go as low as C1, which is 2 octaves below middle C, right up to the A5 region. They are often used to play bass lines, but can also sound extremely expressive when used to play melodies, particularly in the upper register of the instrument. Again, a typical orchestra would have around 10 cellos. Finally, we have the basses, which are used to reinforce the low end, adding might and power to the sound. The double bass can play as low as E0, which is 3 octaves below middle C, and can go up to B flat 3, which is the B flat above middle C. You'd normally expect to see around 8 basses in an orchestra. In addition to the violins, violas, cellos and basses, a typical orchestra would also have 1 or 2 harps. Whilst not technically part of the normal string section, a harp's sound is generated by plucking strings, so I've included it in this piece. The harp has an extremely large range from a C flat 0, which is 3 octaves below middle C, right up to G6. So here I have a piece which was written to accompany a video of a love scene. I'll walk you through each section of the piece, detailing the orchestration techniques used. I was lucky enough to have the piece recorded by a real string section, so that's what you'll hear in this video. There are 2 main musical components which the orchestration is focused around: the melody or foreground, and then the accompaniment or supporting harmonies, which is the background. Let's take a listen to the first 10 bars. Okay, so the opening here is designed to set the mood for the piece, delicate and hopefully romantic. In this introduction, the first violins have a simple accompaniment of 1 sustained high pedal note, whilst the second violins and violas are playing the melodic part in octaves. These first 3 bars are like a question. Bars 4 and 5 are like the response or answer. For the answering phrase, the melody is passed to the violins to give it more weight, whilst the harmony is covered by the violas and cellos. This repeats for the next 5 bars, with the question and then answer again. The 2/4 bar or half bar was added so that the melody which comes in at bar 11 would hit a cut or edit in the love scene. The next section is the main melody of the piece, and I cover how I came up with the tune extensively in my previous video, 5 beginner tips for writing a melody. Here there is a very clear division in the roles of each string instrument. The violins have the tune or melody as part of the foreground, and the violas, cellos and basses, who I bring in for the first time for extra weight, are playing the accompaniment as the background. The harmony is relatively simple, making use of triads with the notes split between the violas, cellos and basses. You can see that I've divided both the violas and cellos into two in order to get a spread of 4 notes, giving a richer sound. The basses are playing the root note of each chord at the same pitch as the lowest cello note. Basses are what we call a transposing instrument, and so sound an octave lower than written. So although this first E is written higher than the low E on the cello line, it's actually the same pitch. Let's take a listen. For the whole melody, the first and second violins are playing the same pitches in unison in order to achieve a thicker sound and giving the melody more weight. You can see that in bar 16, the violas are also playing a rhythm similar to the main melody, but instead of rising like the violins are, they are descending. Having 2 musical lines moving in opposite directions like this is called contrary motion and is an extremely effective composing and orchestration technique. When voicing and orchestrating string chords, make sure you don't have notes which are too close together in the low register. Otherwise the music could start to sound muddy. For the low end of the cello range, try to keep notes at least 5 notes apart from each other. Notes which are higher in pitch, such as the cello notes in bar 13, are okay to have closer together. In this case, the D and F sharp are a third part. Dividing harmony into violas can also be effective when playing in thirds, such as bar 18 here. From bars 19 to 27, I've included a contrasting section, or B section. Here the melody falls back to just the first violins for the first 4 bars, with the seconds, violas and cellos again playing a simple harmonic accompaniment. Notice how the basses are not playing for 3 bars. Remember, you don't have to use all of the string instruments all of the time. By having an instrument resting, it can help to add more impact when they are reintroduced, such as in bar 22 here. Whilst the violins normally get their fair share in playing melodies, in this section I've given the cellos the tune. When playing in the upper half of the register, the cellos can be extremely expressive and intense for melody writing. Here you can see the first violins have an extremely high pedal note, sustaining throughout the harmonic changes below it. This leaves the job of setting out the main harmony to the second violins, violas and basses, which help to set out the C major 7 chord. The melody is then passed back to the second violins and violas, who are playing in unison, before the first and second violins then take over the melody in bars 34 and 35. For the last section of the piece, the high sustaining pedal note in the violins returns, with the tune split between the second violins and violas playing in unison. This leaves the cellos and basses to underpin the harmony. The music gradually starts increasing in intensity from bar 41 onwards. I wanted to achieve a richer, warm sound as much as possible, so it was time to give the melody back to the violins, and then dividing both the violas and cellos into 2, along with the bass notes, to give as large a sound as possible. The high point of the piece being bar 44, where the violins are in octaves and the violas, cellos and basses are all divided, spelling out the chord of B minor. The music then resolves to the C major chord from bar 45 before slowly dying away. Now let's take a listen to the whole piece in one go. So that's a brief introduction into the world of string arranging and orchestrating. Remember to think clearly in terms of melody, or foreground, and accompaniment, or background. Traditionally, the violin's job is to play the melody, and the violas, cellos, and basses concentrate on the accompaniment. Of course, these designations can be broken. Have a go at experimenting with the melody and the basses, with the violins playing the supporting harmony. If you found this video useful, make sure you subscribe to the channel for more composing and music theory tips and tricks. Also, if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments section below.